Alright guys, welcome back to Innovation. Today we're going to be checking out the Flux from Revibikes. Now before we jump into all the specifications and good stuff like that you probably came here for, I do want to talk a little bit about the use case, some of the extras, some of the things that you see here that don't necessarily come with the bike. So first and foremost, as you can tell in the back, we've got the double passenger kit here. Now these seats are pretty cool, very small. So my son, who's 4, fits in here really well. Somebody who's about 12 might be the cutoff for that. Obviously it depends on the size of such a 12-year-old. But you can fit 2 kids on the back, definitely 2 younger kids. And if you wanted to, you take off this middle one, you still have those 2 pads, and that kind of opens it up, I think, for maybe some, either a larger person or, 2 medium-sized kids. You can play around with this. It's just 2 screws that go in there. So that's something that is extra on the bike. And I like it, I think, for, people that have got sort of that, 10-year-old, 6-year-old, something like that. It's a really cool way to, pack them all around. We've got these running boards on the bottom. I believe those come with the bike, so not an extra thing. But yeah, it's a good little step up here. And the nice thing is we have this center kickstand. Now, in a lot of bikes, center kickstands are kind of, sometimes they get in the way, so on and so forth. But when you have, little kids trying to climb up here, it is nice that we got a nice sturdy base. And, my son was jumping around on it. It kind of rocks a little bit like this, so he thought it was a rocking horse for a little while. That was fun. But yeah, so very, very stable. I had no issues. I didn't even feel like I had to hold on to the bike if he was going to climb on and off it, because it is a fairly stable base here at the bottom. Now we do have some of these sidewalls here to protect little legs and stuff from getting into the spokes in the rear wheel. We got that on both sides, which is nice. And that is one of the extras, is sort of that passenger kit. The other thing is we've got this 10 amp hour battery here in the bottom. So this is something you can get extra. I believe they have a 10 amp hour and a 15 amp hour battery that you can put in here. Now with extra batteries, the one thing I always think about, or the one thing I have questions about, is if I charge this battery, which is the main battery up here, on the bike, is it also going to charge that battery? So I'm not 100% sure, but I think so. So if you're not going to pop this battery out to charge it and you're just going to charge it here on the bike, I think it's going to charge up both the batteries, but that is something I'll have to double check with the company to make sure. Definitely do your own research on that, because as of this time, haven't confirmed that with them, but it would be sweet if you could just plug in one charger, charge up both the batteries. I've had several that have dual battery setups, but you got to charge the other battery separately. Sometimes they include another charger, sometimes they don't. And with e-bikes, you're looking at 4 to 6 hours, depending on chargers and stuff, to get one of these fully charged. So now instead of 4 to 6 hours, you're back up and running. Now it's 8 to 12 if you have to charge them separately. So something to note that yeah, we'll do some research on that for you guys. And what else is extra? Up here in the front, we've got the front basket instead of the front rack that it comes with. The front rack mounts the same way, it's got the same mounting points, but I like the basket a little bit better if I'm gonna have something up front. Usually I wouldn't, that's just my personal preference, but we do have enough cabling here to where steering's not an issue, which some of these bikes run into. And the front basket also comes with a bungee strap, so if you want to set something up there, you could bungee strap it, which is pretty cool. No bungees with the basket. There's plenty of bungee cords and stuff if you needed to bungee something up here in the front. And as far as extras go, I think that's pretty much it. So let's jump into some of the specs here. In the rear, which is kind of hard to see because of the plastic here, we got our 48 volt 750 watt hour, 750 watts. We're just talking about batteries. I got confused. 750 watt motor here in the back. Now on these 20-inch wheels, it does feel like we got pretty good amount of torque out of the bike, and so it looks like something that wouldn't be super torquey, but because we're on that smaller wheelbase, it does seem to have a little bit more get up and go than I would expect. So as far as motor power, 750 watts peaks at 12 or 1300, I believe. Pretty reasonable if if I could make a comment, and that's pretty much this whole video is me making comments, but yeah, pretty reasonable for this type of bike, especially at this price point, all the cool things that you get here. Now, if you wanted to get this bike without the rack, I'm not sure why, but if you did, we do have this really cool carrying handle down here, and so you still get this cool, carrying handle, kind of, maneuver it through places. And obviously the rack is not welded on in a couple spots, but there are several nice, I mean, it's very thick, very well built as far as the rear rack goes, so not really a huge complaint if it's, you know, not welded on. Do you have the option to take it off, which might make some maintenance a little bit easier? You probably wouldn't do that though, so I wouldn't really worry about that. Not sure why I brought it up. All right, so the next thing we'll talk about after the motor is going to be the battery. So the main battery we have here is a 48 volt. I believe it's 15 amp hours. I'll correct myself here on the screen if that is incorrect. Fits in well with the down tube here. You know, good paint match as far as that goes. Fits in here pretty well. It's not perfectly seamless like we've seen some bikes, but if you were looking at it from a distance, and I guess we can do that. We're kind of looking from it over here. I don't know, you can't really tell that you know, that's a top 2 battery there. So pretty cool as far as that goes. Easy to get on and off. I actually took it off to charge it before we came out here to do the review. So you know, getting the key in there, easy peasy. And one of the things, just kind of while we're down in this area, is we do have this tension spring right here, which is not something you see all the time, but on cargo bikes generally we see something like this, right? So it mitigates how far you turn. So if you turn it, kind of, you know, brings it back. And it's not too powerful or anything like that, but it's just enough to where, like, if I turned it too far, it starts to, you know, get a little bit of pressure there. But you would never turn that far if you're riding the bike. And then if you're just standing on the bike and you're kind of getting settled and stuff like that, it's going to prevent you from really kind of cranking it to the side. So kind of a cool little bonus there. I like that. It's pretty nice. Next thing we'll talk about is the safety, especially if you're going to be hauling around 2 of your precious little gifts there. You do want to make sure that you are putting them on something that is safe. So here we've got hydraulic brakes. So hydraulic brakes, motor cutoff inhibitors, love to see that. Those are connected down here to our brake calipers. I don't know why it took me so long to say that. And then I believe this is 180 here, but in the back I feel like it's bigger. It could just be my eyes. I don't know. It might just be my eyes. It might both be 180s. But for some reason I was looking at it, I was like, is that a 203 on the back? I'll double check. And again, you know how I do. I'll just correct myself here if I'm wrong. So braking wise, brakes well. If I go to slam on the brakes, it slams on the brakes. So definitely feel like I've got really good control. Locking grips here. Now that kind of ties in with the brakes, because if, you know, you're braking and this is slipping around, that could be an issue. But double locking mechanisms on both of the grips here, which is nice. And as I mentioned, plenty of cabling here. Adjustable stem up here in the front. So we did adjust it up a little bit, just, you know, lends itself to some better clearance here with the basket. Gets the handlebars up a little bit, which is a little bit better for me at 5'10". So a couple of options there as far as, you know, different height adjustments and whatnot. Over here we have got our trigger shifters, 7 speeds, of course, 7 speeds. And then back here we have got our Shimano Tourney SIS Index version back up under here. So far, it seems like everything shifts pretty well just right out of the box, which as a reviewer is always nice because, you know, I don't like to sit around and mess with every bike I get for an hour. So it's nice that everything's just kind of working. And then here, which is kind of a nice thing, is we've got a chain tensioner here. Now this one doesn't provide a whole lot of tension per se, but it does have a nice little roller here to keep that chain from really bouncing, really getting, you know, bounce down here. So having something that keeps it up, keeps it a little more taut, keeps it where it needs to be, it's an excellent addition here in my opinion. Now we have seen some actual chain tensioners. They'll probably be up a little bit higher and they'll have cogs. This one doesn't. It's just sort of like keeping it here. So that would be a part that, you know, maybe they could upgrade on this particular version, but so far haven't had any issues with it. And again, it's nice that it's not allowing the chain to go down there all the way. In the riding that I've done so far, we do get a little bit of ghost pedaling here, even though we do have a fairly big chain ring on here, which I was kind of surprised about. And we'll talk about that more when we're doing the riding test, and, you know, we get to experience that with me as we go about that. But definitely something they could probably improve a little bit here is the gearing. But that's me going max speed, right? If you have it set up like this and you are carrying around 2 people, you're not going to be wanting to go class 3 mode, 28 miles per hour, 25, you know, just pedaling your heart out. So, yeah, if you're just kind of like throttling or kind of easy going around the neighborhood, taking the kids down to the park, you'll never even know this has, any ghost pedaling whatsoever unless I tell you, right? So most people, that won't even be an issue for them. So as far as safety goes, I kind of, mentioned the safety aspects when we were talking about the brakes. We've also got sidewall reflective stripes on the tires, which is nice. And we have integrated headlights and taillights, which is always a bonus. Let's go ahead and turn this on. We'll run through this display real quick, and then we'll get to the lights. So right now you can see it's in Class 2 mode. All you got to do to change that is there's a button right here in the bottom. We're going to press and hold that. And boom, it's going to put us into Class 3. Now, something that I noticed, which is kind of strange, is the throttle doesn't work in Class 3 mode. So if you want the throttle, you want to go 20 miles per hour with the throttle, you have to have it in Class 2 mode. Then the motor will go. You can hear it back there. So if you want to go faster, you have to do it pedaling, and you don't have access to the throttle, which is, just one of those things. You know what I mean? So that's something that's interesting. We've got this red light here, and that is going to be our lights. So if we go down over here, we'll see these front lights. Now these ones are fairly bright for bike lights, and you can mount it here. Now I mounted it kind of all the way down. I would probably, so when you're thinking about safety stuff, like you really want to have it mounted higher. So what I might look to do is get a different bracket for this, or something like that, or maybe just finagle this so maybe I can get the headlight up here. That would probably be a little bit better for me, but it does mount down here pretty easily. We've got all of our cables and stuff connected here. They give you plenty of cabling, so you don't have to have like an extra cable. Usually sometimes when you have these front baskets, they have like an extension cable. Nothing like that here, so super easy to plug it in. And in the back, we've got our tail light right there, nice and wide, pretty thin, so it's not super thick, but it does have a cool design to it. This thing's so long, I don't know if I can, oh yeah, I don't know if you can tell from there, but I'm hitting the brake. It's another safety feature, so if you do hit on the brakes, it is going to flash and let people know that you're coming to a stop, which is a nice safety feature to see here. So that is pretty much going to cover it for most of the main specs. Talked about the motor, the battery, top speed, some of the Class 2, Class 3 stuff, the brakes, the battery. I think I already mentioned that. We do have full sets of fenders. Might be the last thing. We've got a nice big fender in the back, nice fender over here. Now they're not super wide fenders, but these are smaller tires, so it doesn't have to cover that much. So far they've been doing a pretty good job, but might be something to look at, maybe getting something a little bit wider in there, if we're looking at like next versions of the bike. But so far, no real complaints here. The tires that we've got here, nice street tread. Again, if you got two kids in the back, you're not hitting any jumps, you're not going off road, and you're not hitting any loose terrain. So having some nice slick rolling, nice grippy road tires, definitely the way to go, in my opinion. So that's going to cover it for most of that stuff. We're going to go and do the ride test right now. And if you guys, there's any specs I didn't touch on, you're like, hey, you didn't talk about that, let me know down in the comments, and we can discuss that, do some research for you, or maybe I just forgot to say something. So let's head out for the ride test. All right, guys, we are out here for the ride test, and we're going to do some riding, we're going to do some testing. So let's go ahead and, usually I like to start out trying this like a bike, but per usual, didn't downshift, so let's go ahead and do that. All right. So let's go ahead and pedal it like a real bike. So I'm going to put in pedal assist level 0, right? So we're not getting any assistance from the motor. Throttle doesn't work. Not going to get anything from pedaling. Let's go ahead and do a little pedaling here. So go ahead and jump into second, third, fourth. So it shifts all right. It shifts a little bit better when it's under power. So that seems to be giving it some issues. But yeah, not terrible to pedal. Not necessarily like, the best, but if you had to, it is all right. So let's go ahead and we'll use the throttle and pedal assist level 1 here. Scoot down the road. Now it is going to take us all the way up to our top speed of 20 miles per hour here in Class 2 mode, and that is nice to see. So sometimes we'll have controllers that limit how fast your throttle goes based on the level of pedal assist you're in. And we like to talk about it as a safety thing, because let's say you're in a situation, you're just kind of cruising around, pedal assist level 1, pedal assist level 2, and you get yourself into a situation where you need to get out of it really quick. you know, it's a stray dog or a car didn't see you, or you can tell a car is coming and you need to get out of there, you still have access to the full throttle here, which is nice. As far as pedaling goes, put that in 7 here, put it in 6. So 1, I'm not getting anything from the motor at 15. Let's see, 3, getting a little bit. So 3 kind of wants to keep us around this 14, 15 mile an hour. And 4 is like, hey, let's get out of here. Now, like I mentioned, we are getting some ghost pedaling at this point. Like, I would really have to pedal just to keep up with this 20 miles per hour. And it pedals us level 5. It's going to get us to 21. So not much of a difference between 4 and 5. They both seem to have a lot more torque in the programming. And they get us up to that 20, 21 miles per hour here. And again, we can always hit the throttle and keep on cruising. So one of the things I mentioned was class 2 versus class 3, all right? So all you gotta do is hold this down here, and you can do it while you're riding. It's gonna reset the screen. Now we're in class 3 mode, and now the throttle doesn't work. But if you're pedaling, now we're gonna be able to go a little bit faster here. Now definitely is way too fast for me to be pedaling at this point. So I think right around that 20 mile per hour, we start getting to some ghost pedaling. But like I said, a lot of people, like if you're just cruising like this, you got to get somewhere fast. I mean, you can just sort of just pedal, take it easy, not break a sweat, still get up to that 25 miles per hour, and you just can't use the throttle in class 3 mode, which I'm not exactly sure the reasoning behind that. It is something I found to be quite interesting about the setup here. But being able to just kind of, it's a cadence sensor, it's not a torque, so we can just nicely cruise around. There's a loose cat and some big dogs. That is a recipe for disaster. So yeah, so if it were me, I honestly would probably just kind of keep this in class 2 mode. Well, it's already too fast. So I was like, oh, the motor didn't cut off. But then it was like, hey, this is too fast for class 2 mode. Nice, easy braking. Like I mentioned, the brakes here, they're a little bit stiffer, but sometimes, if you put, 15, 20, 30 miles on it, you start to get like, a little bit of the sponginess. You don't want it too spongy. That's not a good thing, but it gets to be a little bit easier to sometimes break in some of those brakes I found. I'll go ahead and climb up the little hill here. Didn't really dip below 18, so not too shabby. Now the motor noise does seem to be a little bit louder than most of the 750s that we test. And I don't know if that's, with those panels, you sort of create like this resonance chamber where it could just be, the noise could basically be amplifying itself, and not great if you're looking for something that's like sleek and quiet, because it does have a little bit of that, that electric motor whine. But it could be those panels. So I don't know if it's the motor necessarily being louder, or like I said, we just made a little bit of a resonance chamber there, and now it's now it's an instrument, an electric instrument. But as far as cruising, we're cruising. We can set our feet over here. I didn't realize my camera angle was so low there. Must have been one of those bumps. How's that? That's a little better. Hopefully that wasn't down too long, guys. Gonna do another braking test here. In 3, 2, 1. Whew! Yeah, that was, I don't know, 8, 9 feet? That was incredibly good braking distance here from this bike. And again, the fact that we've got the 2 batteries, the fact that, if I had this bike and I'm, using it sort of like the day-to-day life, head down to the park, maybe head to the, the corner store, grab some things, I'm pretty much just going to be using the throttle on this bike. Oh, there's some good dogs here. Oh. Very obedient. Well, mostly obedient. One of them was a little bit wandery, but that's all right. That sort of stuff happens. Now, I'm going to hit this corner here. I'm going to take this green belt back, and I want to see how it handles sort of the off-road, the bumps and thumps, and stumps and humps. Did I say humps already? That would have been a good one. Anywho, do a little bit of light off-road. I mean, basically we're off-trailing, really, right? Because it's not anything crazy. Just a little dirt and grass. It's gonna be a little bumpy. I mean, really not too shabby so far. I mean, I haven't really hit anything super bumpy. That's a little bumpy. But that is not bad at all. And again, we're just on the throttle. That was a bigger bump. Felt nice, actually. I mean, yeah, I mean, this is bumpy. I mean, I've been on some other bikes. We're actually over here filming a Pedigo review, I think, about a month or so ago. And I remember that being a lot bumpier on that, and that had fat tires, so yeah, that was actually really, really pleasant. I like when bikes surprise me. It's always nice. I feel like the other Revibikes surprised me as well. We were on the Prowler, and I was like, I don't know how it's gonna do on the hills, and it just climbed up hills way better than I expected. And this one, it's a lot easier to handle and a lot more comfortable off-road than I'd initially anticipated. So that is quite a pleasant surprise. Well, guys, I think that's going to do it for this review, right? We talked about all the specs. We went on here, we did some riding. We talked about some of the different modes. We did some brake tests. We did some top speed tests. I mean, what else are you going to test about a bike, right? Distance. I'd love to test it, but we got 2 batteries on here. I mean, we're down 4% on this whole day. That's me going out to start filming. That's me doing some other stuff. Then we get to the ride test, and I've pretty much been using the throttle the whole time. So yeah, we're about 4 miles, which, I mean, it feels longer than that, but yeah, so we don't have time to do a distance test. That's really what I was trying to say. So if you guys got any questions for me, please let me know down in the comments. I'll leave a link to Revibikes website where you can check out the Revibikes that we've reviewed. You know, we've got this one, the Prowler, the Runabout Point 2. So if you guys want to check out them, have a link to them. And again, any comments, questions, concerns, complaints, issues, grievances, let me know down in the comments. Love talking to you guys, and we'll catch you on the next one. That's not bad. A little squirrely, but not bad.